let's take a look at breath and tensegrity, this tensional integrity. Integrity has to do with integration, right? So all the parts connected and all the parts in relationship. In breathing, we expand and we condense. We expand and we condense. I like using this word condensation instead of contract because contraction we tend to think of like the pulling, the active pulling. I can speak for myself. And condensation can actually be at times passive. It can be active, it can be a contraction, but to condense is just this act of getting smaller. So if we take a deep breath in and hold it, the longing comes up to release it eventually, right? This longing is like, oh God, I need to let it go, to the point that it may happen on its own. The condensation will happen without effort. Now, we can add effort to it. Push all the air out. The expansion from here can happen without effort, right? The longing for it. If you're still holding your breath out, you'll probably feel it soon. The longing, which brings us back to this like resting point. So see how there's a midpoint here. And then it takes some work to expand further. Let it go. Back to the midpoint. It can take some work to condense further. In both expansion and condensation, there's this aspect where first there's no effort and then there's effort, right? Because we go on either side of this midpoint. So the midpoint I experience in my body as this neutral, where I'm not expanded and I'm not condensed. And yet we're always moving back and forth around it. Try that on for yourself. Now, of course, most of this is unconscious most of the time. And I think what we're doing most of the time is working around our neutral just a little bit, right? Breathing doesn't take a lot of effort most of the time. We're just moving a little bit around that midpoint. And then if we really want to expand and work the breath, work the expansion in our bodies, work the condensation in our bodies, that takes some work. And it can bring up some pretty interesting states of consciousness if you do it really intensively, like the Tumo breathing, Wim Hof's style breathing. There are a number of pranayama techniques, of breathing techniques that will do a lot here. And we can work more on the expansion side and release, expand and release, or we can work more on the condensation side and release back condensation. Tensegrity and breath are a fun linking of experiences. Tensegrity is just our nature. It's not like we have to try to be in tensegrity, but to be aware of this can do a lot. Let me detail for a minute how this works in the body. The wood struts are like our bones. Cables here are like the connective tissues. The muscles work the connective tissues. Muscle actually isn't that strong. It can be torn quite easily. Connective tissue is incredibly strong. Connective tissues, the fascia, the ligaments, the tendons, even blood is actually a connective tissue. The connective tissue structure of the fascia is contiguous through the muscles. The muscle fibers are woven in it, and then the muscles can operate that network. I often like to think about it like a sailboat, and the masts are like the bones. And there are parts of the mast that may not even touch, especially on those big old pirate boats. The sails and the ropes are like the connective tissue. The sailors are the muscle. The captain is like maybe the brain or various aspects of the nervous system. In looking at this, place in your body the sense that the bones are floating in this network of tension. It's very different than imagining it like a stack. And many of us have been trained to think of the body like a stack. It's not that that's not useful, stacking the spine or stacking yourself in relationship to gravity. That has truth too. But underneath that is this. That's what I've got for today. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them. I'm also curious if anyone's come across any scientific literature around the breath and tensegrity. There's a lot that I've come across around tensegrity. I've learned a lot. This experience of the breath and the neutral point is something I've come to through my own body experience, and I'd be curious what's been measured or found with observational technologies. So thank you so much.